Dear Dr. Olafs Libermanis, dear Dr. Martin Schmalzubris, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a true honor for me and a bit of surprise, or a big surprise, to be invited to participate at the first Military Surgery Forum in Riga. As a gynecologist and obstetrician and lifelong civilian, my curriculum vitae doesn't quite fit any of your categories. Last year, the 24th of February changed the world many of us took for granted. Peace in Europe was no longer something we were lucky enough to enjoy. The last war that devastated the whole of Europe and left it in ruins ended in 1945, 78 years ago. While the following 3-4 generations grew up with economic, educational, healthcare and other challenges, they did so without the fear of bombs falling from the sky, seeking refuge in shelters, or fleeing their home countries. Russia's war against Ukraine has brought back brutal and dark times. It had also awakened distant but never forgotten memories to people in the Baltic states, Poland, Finland, and other countries. Memories of murdered innocent civilians, of inhumane deportations to Siberia, of the loss of our state independence. In these dark times, the courage of the Ukrainian population in resisting Russian aggression and fighting for their independence has been an inspiration, a reminder, a wake-up call for many of us. A reminder for politicians to isolate Russia politically, economically, and socially. A reminder to entrepreneurs to cut all ties and trade with Russia. A reminder to athletes to refuse to compete with Russian athletes. And a reminder to medical professionals to provide care to those in need. Since the beginning of Russia's war against the people of Ukraine, Latvian medical institutions have been offering help and support in a number of ways. For example, the Latvian NGO Marta is supporting a center in Ivano-Frankivsk for women and girls who have suffered sexual violence during the war. Along with providing physical and mental health services, the center is recording testimonies to use at future trials for Russian war crimes. The Children's University Clinic in Riga is supporting the Ochtimat Children's Clinic in Kiev. Acute and chronically ill children in Ukraine are suffering due to the destruction of infrastructure and lack of available medical assistance. Help is being offered from Latvian resource centers for children and young people with mental health issues. Sadly, it is not a question of whether the Ukrainian children and young people who witnesses atrocities will suffer mental health issues, but rather to what extent. The help Latvia's resource centers provide will be available in building Ukraine's future after the war. There is support from our leading rehabilitation center, Vaivari. Since 2014, Ukrainian military staff and civilians have been receiving physical rehabilitation after amputations. Vaivari has helped them to learn how to use their prosthetics and continue to live a normal life. Additionally, the center chooses the same approach as today's forum. Vaivari's medical staff have been sharing their knowledge and skills with their Ukrainian colleagues, both in Latvia and Ukraine. The exchange of knowledge has been enriching for both sides. At the very beginning of the war, two Latvian microsurgeons, Dr. Olaf Libermanis and Dr. Martin Schmalzubris, drove to Kiev to save the lives of Ukrainian soldiers in need of surgery. In the summer of 2022, when I was invited by the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, to witness the atrocities in Bucha and Irpin, I met Dr. Olaf Libermanis for the first time. And one of his statements impressed me deeply. He told me that amputating a limb is a rather quick and straightforward procedure, but saving a limb requires long hours of complicated surgery. However, he saw these long hours as an investment, not only in the lives of these young men and women he was operating on, but also in the future of Ukraine's post-war society. As with all wars before, this war will also end. But the image of amputated veterans is a depressing and a permanent reminder of a war that should never have happened. As a child, I remember seeing World War II survivors with missing arms and legs. I remember their simple wooden prostheses. It was a sad scene. On the same occasion, Dr. Olaf Lieberman showed me the sutures microsurgeons are using. As a gynecologist and obstetrician, I have sutured abdominal and post-delivery injuries. However, I have never used such delicate sutures. He showed me sutures, and to be honest, I couldn't see them with the naked eye. Historically, the way of warfare is always changing. The Punic Wars were different to Napoleon's War. World War II was different to the Vietnam War. Somehow, mankind is always capable of creating new weapons, but is rarely able to solve the associated humanitarian crisis. These new weapons cause a greater variety and complexity of injuries, and these injuries demand different and innovative surgical approaches. Your goal to strengthen modern microsurgery and educate Ukrainian surgeons by learning from war-experienced colleagues is well worth supporting. It will save lives during the war and bring value to the Ukrainian society in peacetime. Russia's aggression against Ukraine has brought so much pain, sorrow, and death. For the universal sense of justice, and even more, for justice for the Ukrainian people, there has to be a tribunal revealing and condemning all Russia war crimes. I hope you will have interesting discussions and case presentations, find many supporters, and realize your projects. Thank you to all.